Hello, hello, hello. This is Kwavi, life coach for women 50 and over, and the creator of Flourish, an online community for women 50 and over. I'm so excited. I haven't done a live in a while. I haven't done any interviews actually. And today I have a special guest. Her name is Dr. Michelle Griffin, and we're going to be talking about menopause. Menopause is probably the most mismanaged medical condition in the world. And we're going to hear from the expert, Dr. Michelle Griffin. She is an OBGYN and the Chief Medical Officer of Vera Health. So she should be joining us any minute. She is based in the UK, and I'm really excited to speak to her and get her own take on menopause, the symptoms and what we can do for women. Because I really think that as we are living older, we're getting older, one of the things that we really need to focus on is helping women manage their menopause symptoms in whichever way possible, because that's going to help us as we live these longer lives. We're finding out that, we're living longer, and so menopause is one area that needs to be tackled because it can be debilitating in some instances. But unfortunately, there hasn't been a lot of research done in that area. My thing is, to be honest with you, I just think it's because it's a women's issue. That's my personal opinion. That's why I think that it hasn't been taken seriously. So I'm really glad that we have Dr. Michelle Griffin that's going to talk to us all about that. So if you're female, you're, younger, older, this topic is of the utmost importance, and I urge you to listen. Now, if you have friends, share this so that they can also come in and listen. I think it's important for all of us to be involved in this conversation because it affects all of us. So anyway, I hope she should be on any minute, and we'll get to talk about all things menopause. I've done my own research on menopause because mine kind of came on suddenly, and I was like, what is happening to me? And I'll kind of mention that when I speak with Dr. Griffin. But it's just interesting how something that it's so common, like if you live long enough, you're going to experience menopause. I do agree that people experience it in different ways. But the thing is, you will get to experiences. Estrogen will drop and all those hormonal issues will happen. It's just that the symptoms that you experience will be different. And so, okay, so I'm hoping hi Lisa. Hi Nikki. Hi Cynthia. So she should be on any minute. And Dr. Griffin, if you're on, okay, perfect. I just saw she sent me a request. Yay. I'm excited to have her on, and she should be coming in any minute. Yay, I'm so excited. I haven't done these lives. Yay!
Hello there, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm really good, thank you. It's so nice to see you.
You too. And I'm glad, we're able to have this conversation because I think this conversation is way overdue in most circles. It's not being talked about enough. I keep saying that. It's like, we need to talk more about it. We talk about puberty. We talk about all these other issues.
Yeah.
Menopause is like zero, nothing. So.
Definitely.
Great. So, and listen, for those listening, if you have questions, just post them because she's available to answer all your questions. So listen, the questions that you've probably spoken to your doctor about, and maybe he or she said you'll get over it, because I've heard a lot of my clients say that.
Really?
Questions that you didn't feel were answered correctly, or maybe there were questions you just didn't feel comfortable speaking to your physician about. You can type it in here and we'll get them answered for you. So, all right. So, Dr. Stella Griffin, can you probably just kind of introduce yourself a little bit so that they'll know who you are? Yes.
Of course, yeah. And thanks for having me on, Kwavi.
You're welcome.
Lovely to join you and all your followers. And as you said, this is a great platform just to ask questions and have a really honest, open conversation about things. So, my name's Dr. Michelle Griffin, and I am the Chief Medical Officer here at Vera Health. And our first product that we have developed is called Stella, and it is an app for the treatment of menopause symptoms. So we can talk about it more. It's not to replace your HRT or any other medication or management. Some people are doing really into exercise and yoga and acupuncture, and that's fantastic. And I would never say throw that out. I would say this is an addition to whatever you are doing. And so it's very much based on lifestyle and behavior change to really help you take stock of where you're at. We are all creatures of habits. We do great things and we do some not so great things. And it's to try and really just help you see things in a different light. Importantly, understand why and what you should be doing, and then to help you get there and build it up in a very real kind of doable way through building habits. And my background to this is as a gynecologist, so I'm used to looking after and managing a lot of women going through all their stages of life, but particularly around menopause, and understanding of, just as you were saying, how different these symptoms are and how much they affect women.
Yeah, I'm so glad you kind of gave us an introduction and also explained your background so that the viewers can know that. I do have one. My first question though is, call came through. Are doctors given? I should have put do not disturb. I forgot to do that.
No, don't worry. I just thought I'd lost you, and I was like, the first question.
I know. I'm sorry about that. I should have hit do not disturb when I first started the call. I forgot to do that. Okay, so one of the questions I do have though is, are doctors given any special training in menopause?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I should have said also is that we're based in the UK. We should be coming to the US soon. But my training and where I've worked is all in the UK. So I speak really only from a UK perspective. But yeah, so I would say there's typically two types of doctors that you would see for menopause management. One would be your primary care physician, which is the equivalent of a GP in the UK. No, they don't get specialist training in it. They may have opted into doing it, or when they qualified, they may have gone on a training course, but it's not something that somebody comes and says, look, we really need to focus on this. This is actually, you know, the medicine and the pathology that sits behind what's going on. Therefore, this is how we think about the treatment and stuff. And then secondly, there's obviously like your OBGYN, and you would be seeing them in both a community and possibly a hospital setting, whether that's like a routine that you're going for screening and a kind of annual health check and check out everything from a women's health perspective. But again, I don't think you can do specialist kind of subspecialist training, but it's not something that everybody automatically has to do. And I think this is what leads to the real variation in practice and the real kind of confusing, well, you know, my primary care physician said this, but my OBGYN that I went to have my smear and this and that done said something else, and now I'm stuck in the middle and I don't know how to work that one out.
Thank you so much for explaining that, because I knew that, but I wanted you to at least explain to the viewers that unless they opt for extra training, they don't know. And so they're just going by what they kind of know on their own when you come to them and they give, and some, to be honest with you, don't know. They don't. You know?
Definitely. And I think the thing is that even as a gynecologist myself, having worked in this field and really kind of subspecialized into menopause now, you realize that, okay, it's not a super dynamic field. I'm not going to try and say it's like cutting edge cancer and it's moving around all the time. But I think the thing is that we can all see that it affects half the population. So when you look at it like that and you think, okay, but it's not uniform. Of course it's not. It's not going to, like, everyone goes through it at a different age. They go through it for a different reason. Yes, it may be spontaneous and it happens due to the biology, and the ovaries start to reduce in their function as you get older. Therefore, it doesn't produce as many estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. But equally, you could have gone through premature menopause, which is defined as less than 40 years old. And most of those cases, that happens in about 1 in 100, which actually, when you think it's happening to half the population, that's an awful lot of women.
That's a lot of,
There's a few exceptional cases. This is likely to be someone that, you know, whether it's a friend, a family member, person at work, we all know of 100 women. And so one of those will likely have gone through this before the age of 40. And they're often can't work out because we don't yet fully understand why that's happening, and that's a whole area of research. And then obviously there's that last group is really what we call the induced menopause. So this is women who are having their ovaries removed, which is more common than you expect, because
yeah, it is.
yeah, a lot of people suffer badly from gynae problems such as endometriosis, and they will have, not often on the first surgery, but if they're going back for their third, fourth, fifth time, then often they'll say, look, we've had to remove the ovaries because of the endometriosis was so bad. If they have ovarian cancer, it's removed. And then equally, if you've got cervical cancer, which typically that happens more in your kind of 30s and 40s on average, then those women often have part surgery followed by radiotherapy to the pelvis, which affects the ovaries, and they stop working. So a lot of people will go through this quite a different menopause situation. And on top of that, they're dealing with another significant illness that has long-going ramifications. And of course, thrown in is obviously the lack of fertility, you know, stopping in the fertility. So it becomes very complex, and everybody experiences it differently. So you can't even say, oh, you have breast cancer, I've got breast cancer, we're both on the same chemotherapy, we're both 45, and we're going to have exactly the same menopause experience. It's just not going to happen like that. And there really is, definitely in the UK, and I see in the US as well, there is a little bit of a lack of explanation of how this is really going to affect you on a day-to-day, what you should expect.
That, and I think that is the problem. It's like, it can be so, I mean, for some women, it's so debilitating. Just leaving the house is a challenge, but no one gets to understand that. And sometimes, unfortunately, you know, as women, sometimes you get statements like, well, it's just in your head, you know, that's not, but it can be, I mean, it can be so challenging. And it's like, it's not taken seriously.
No, not at all. And I think also when we think about it, I mean, I reflect back on what was said to me, like at school, when we talk about puberty and where do babies come from and all of that. It was all very much like, one, we don't ever really talk about estrogen. We just talk about that, like magically you get these eggs once a month, and then you don't get pregnant and you have a period. And this whole like, well, how did that ever come to be? What's really controlling that doesn't get talked about.
That's true.
And so I'm really clear to make sure that my 2 young daughters understand that, because then they can understand that this is a process, and it's not just it comes from above and therefore I can't explain why it doesn't work out, or how do contraceptives work, or then what happens when you go through menopause. It's all linked up, and you need to start from that earlier stage. And then also, when you're kind of explaining all of this, you've also got to realize that you know, people are going to experience this so differently, and they're going to take different management from this. And so you are then sort of like saying, what's happening with you? What's the situation with you?
That's it. Yeah. And I think that's important. It's like, you know, the primary care physicians, or if you're OBGYN, they just need to listen a bit more, because we're all experiencing it differently. Like, I'll give you my example. For me, mine was kind of bizarre. I had adult acne. And I was like, what is happening? I didn't have acne as a teenager. Now I'm having full-blown adult, and mine started in my early 40s. And I'm like, what is good? I mean, it was so bad that I couldn't touch my face. That's how bad the acne was. And no one knew what was going on. They were like, oh, change your diet. I'm like, okay, what do you want me to do? It's like, I'm vegetarian. I've taken out all the processed food. I typically eat healthy. And I was like, what is going on?
And because it's so severe, it's not just the occasional one spot where you're like, or maybe you've just eaten a bit of rich food, or you've overindulged over Christmas. But you're like, yeah, I'd expect to get, or wearing masks. Yeah, I expect to get a couple of spots, but
not all over.
A complete change in my skin. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. It was crazy. I mean, going out was like, I would have to put a full face on me, because I was like, and I'm vain, I'm going to be honest. So I was like, no. But it was just crazy. I was like, what is this? But you know, the strangest thing, I didn't find out till, hi, Tanitras. I did not find out. Hi. Let me just say hi to some of the people.
Yeah,
hi, Karen. Hi, Catherine. Hi, Lisa. Hi, Denise. Hi, Ruth. Hi, Michelle. But what was interesting was I didn't find out until years later that that's what it was, because I didn't, after that, everything kind of settled. And then for years after that, I didn't really notice anything. And then when I noticed that, you know, my periods started getting, you know, kind of spotty and I wasn't having them as much anymore. And then I got some other symptoms. And then I went to my doctor and then she said it all out. She was like, but no one told me. I was like, seriously.
And this is the thing, when I was saying about how we just think of like, we aren't really aware about estrogen and what it does. And if you are, it's very much focused on babies, pregnancy, having periods.
That's it.
And it doesn't actually explain anything, because then you're sort of speaking to, let's say on average 40-45-year-old women who are saying, so why can't I sleep that well? Why am I putting on weight? Why have I got changes in my skin? Why am I losing my hair? Why do I feel like I get recurrent urine infections? Why is it painful?
Exactly.
Why do I not want to have sex? Like, I must have like such awful disease that is causing all these multiple issues. And that's because you've then got to say, well, actually your whole understanding and what we've kind of said culturally is that there's estrogen, it comes from the ovaries and it's just to do with pregnancy and periods. It's just not the case.
Not true.
It's a significant factor in how our body and our mind and our emotions work and are regulated and controlled. And there's good evidence that shows that. And so then, but it just feels like, I do feel like it's quite a lot for somebody who's in the throes of it to then have to take on board. Whereas if you're more aware and you're like, okay, now I get the role of what estrogen's doing. Now I get that when it's going up and down and fluctuating, I'm going to have all these symptoms. And then post-menopause, when even though the levels are low but stable, those symptoms should go away. All right, okay, like I know what's happening now, thank you. And then I can go and speak to a doctor and feel I'm on the same page, I get what's going on. But it's a lot to have to take on board.
Listen, it is.
Especially when you're in the throes of dealing with those symptoms.
When you are, and it's funny, I like to call estrogen my best friend. Because once it goes away, it's like all these things that I'm like, what is happening? It's like, oh no, because it affects so many different, but no, we're not told that.
No.
And one of the things that I really want us to be able to do is, if we can educate ourselves, I want us to also educate the younger ones. Because I'll tell you this, when I woke up, it was probably like 8 years ago, in a pool of sweat, I thought I was going to die. Seriously.
That's the thing. Yeah.
I thought I had a panic attack. I was like, what is happening?
It is really sad actually, because there's two things that really strike me. There's a lot of women suffering who aren't aware or feel like this must just be aging and I need to put up with it and it's normal. And equally, I think a lot of those same women and a whole nother group of women are saying, I think I'm going to die, you know, like brain fog, losing your memory, not thinking of your words, not being able to sleep, sweating. You're thinking, have I got early onset dementia? Have I got some horrendous infection? What's going on? And then it is really difficult if you do come across a medical professional who then kind of says, oh, it's fine. It's not really anything. You'll get over it. Yeah.
Now that is real.
Because that makes you then think,
an issue.
I am really pathetic. I'm making something out of something that's not. But it really plays with your mind, because you're then in bed going, but this is like now 6 months in or 3 years in. I haven't had a decent night's sleep. My relationship is really in tatters. Someone's saying, I am dying. And I totally get that.
Tanisha said the same thing. I felt the same. I'm telling you, it was crazy. I really thought, I mean, I'm dramatic at some point, but this was something else. I really felt I was dying, like something was wrong.
Yeah. And it's really, really sad. And I think even like in the UK, there is much more, I would say just in the last year or so, there's been a real push, there's a real movement to have more conversations around menopause.
Yes,
more
you guys have done a better job, I think.
Yeah, and recently, just last week, there was a bill in the government to look at around prescribing. And I know that isn't equivalent over in the US, but it just shows where we are. But even then, I do have some concerns that it's a feeling of, that's it, we've done that then. You know?
Okay, so, and this is my take, and I don't know what your view is. I just feel that because it's a woman's issue, it's not taken seriously. I think they need to invest more money and research into menopause, and that no one's really doing that. I mean, definitely.
And I think when you start looking at things like that, you see that there is a real data gap when it comes to women versus men. And that's not just
Yeah.
about menopause. And I've read
No,
some fantastic
you're
books.
right.
You know, one of the biggest things is around heart disease and how
Yes.
it affects women in a completely different way. And what I mean by that is everything from the type of woman it affects is different to the type of man. So typically we would think about somebody, a man in their 50s, 60s, overweight, smoking, drinks a lot of alcohol, type A, high stress job, not much exercise, really not able to control their stress. And, you know, they have very high blood pressure, whether it's diagnosed or not. They are really what we would say is your barn door of, like, you're going to be coming in through ER with chest pain and having a heart attack. But that's just not the case for women. They rarely will present like that.
Wow.
And actually, they are much more like, they talk about niggling pains, and that's not women just being able to manage their pain differently. It's actually causing different situations. And I've seen that with people close to me, and I think it was really great with this cardiologist who wrote this book, who really, she just said, actually she was seeing things and saying, I can't continue practicing cardiology because these are two separate things. There's female cardiology and there's male cardiology.
Wow.
And I think a lot of that is still kind of unspoken, or it's not really out in mainstream. And so it does make things incredibly difficult. And you know, people have to, you know, wake up to the realization that it can't all just be on women as a patient to say, well, you need to be aware of what's going on, and you need to know how to manage that, and then you need to go to your doctor and say, this is what you want, because that's just, well, then we should all just be qualified as doctors and treat ourselves.
Thank you. Exactly. Which we're not. So
exactly. And it's, you know, that's a service like any other service, and that's what we're going for. So I think there is a significant data gap across the different genders. I think one of the biggest issue with menopause, and I agree completely, that the kind of unwritten rule, the unspoken truth is, it's just aging. Everyone will go through it who are female, and therefore you've just got to get on with it and go through it. And I mean, I look at our mother's generation, and that's what they did. Like, you know, you speak to people who are in their 40s and 50s now, and you said, well, what do you remember with your mother? And they said, well, she went a bit weird. She went a bit crazy. The windows and doors were open all the time. She didn't really know what she was saying. And I think, one, that shows, you know, a lack of conversation around these things. But also the fact that there wasn't this, Mum, you don't seem right. Do you need to go and see a doctor? Or her saying, I don't feel like I can function as I used to. I should go and see a doctor. Or a partner there saying, this doesn't seem quite right. Things have changed. We shouldn't accept that as okay. You know, let's go and see somebody. It's more just like, oh, it's that age. And, you know, we see, you know, mirrors of that in puberty and pregnancy, and periods. Like, she's hormonal. It's that time of the month.
It's the time of the month.
Oh, that's why she's a bit like this. And you're like, this is really not acceptable, because this is a biological change that is happening for whatever reason. And we have to understand the ramifications because of that. And they're not all going to be physical. They are going to be, you know, cognitive, in how our brain functions, and emotional. And a big one is massive increase in anxiety and agitation.
Like Ruth just mentioned, her mom had to go on antidepressants. You know, and you're thinking you're crazy, like something is wrong with you. And just being, I think one of the issues I think women go through at this point is, I think a lot of them, when they go, the first thing they just give is, okay, I'll just give you antidepressants. And I'm like, really? You want to put all of us on that? Like, why?
No, it's very much. And I think in part I can understand, because there's a lot of overlapping things. So when you talk about, you know, out of nowhere, there's not been any significant trigger or stress that's caused me to have a lot of agitation, anxiety. I feel my moods are all over the place. I'm not getting great sleep. I seem to be putting on weight. My appetite's up, down, and all over the place. That's true. There are some overlaps with true depression. However, what we are pushing for is actually, you know, if you are 40 plus and you are noticing these changes, it has to be on a list of something that could be the cause of this. It can't just be like, the only thing here is depression. It needs to be up there on the list. And actually what a lot of medics will say now is it probably needs to be number 1 on the list. Okay. And you really want to kind of presume it's perimenopause and you're experiencing these menopausal symptoms as your ovarian function is changing. But I'll just check your thyroid to make sure we're not missing anything. Okay. I'll just do a full blood count to check you're not anemic. I'll just do a couple of these other things. But my likely guess at this stage, from what you've told me, through this kind of mixture of symptoms that kind of been coming and going, you're 40, you're 45, it sounds like we're going down a perimenopause route. Right. And I think that change, when people really take that on in the medical profession, will lead to a lot better care because it's on people's mind. And that's a big thing around, you know, education across the medical profession in the UK at the moment. But equally, Stella really fits that by saying, actually, you know, we are a treatment for your symptoms, but part of what we offer is an educational platform. Read women's stories, read people's blogs, look at our symptom library, look at what we are saying. These are all the different symptoms, and these are the different ways those symptoms can present. So, you know, all the urogenital things that we talk about, like painful sex, dryness, soreness, irritation, recurrent urine infections, or real discomfort, they're all the different ways that actually one single symptom of lack of estrogen to the vulva and vagina presents itself. And I think it's like, that's what we're trying to get across. If you can be aware of this and read these different stories and accounts and look at the different elements, and then go on this 12-week plan in Stella and say, this is everything that you're feeling, this is what you're experiencing, but actually this is what can help change your behavior in this way, think about things differently, and just following that forward. If you've got all that discomfort, you're not going to want to have sex. It's a completely typical, understood response. Exactly. If you find that things are painful by just wearing underwear, you're not going to want to have sex. So people come and they say, and I remember typically as a gynecologist, what can you do to help my sex drive, doctor? And actually what sat below it in most of the time is there was a change physically that meant they then didn't want to have sex. And so then you go, let's sort out that physical issue, and then let's start building you up on wanting to have sex again. But it's not an overnight cure.
Yeah, it's not. I agree. I definitely agree. While you keep on talking, I have a question for you. I just want to put my... I think I have to plug it in because I'm running out of battery. But one of the questions I do have for you is, in using Stella, like, is Stella available in the US? The app, is it available in the US? It is.
Great question. So it isn't yet available in the US, but it is coming definitely. So we're hoping to get it launched in the US, where you'll be able to download it for iOS. So iPhones, iPads, first of all, will be coming to Android soon. And we're hoping to get that out into the App Store towards the end of this year. And so it will be coming. And you know, we would love people to obviously, you know, go on. And the great thing is we built it so it was designed not from a place where I'm a doctor and I'm going to tell you what I think is wrong, but actually a place which is much better, which is saying, what do you think's wrong? What's your number one issue, Kwavi, that you want to sort out? I may think like your weight gain or your brain fog or your hot flashes is the big thing. But if you say, actually, you know what, it's my lack of sleep, I need to sort that out. You're in control of it. And I think that's what part of what makes it so unique is you come on and we list all the symptoms and you say, you then pick as the user, this is what's bothering me. You then rank which ones bother you the most, or which ones do you want to most sort out to begin with. And then we will devise a 12-week personalized plan based on what your symptoms are. And then we have a human coach. And I do make it very specific. It's a human coach. It's not a bot. It's not an algorithm. It's a proper coach at the end of it saying, hey, how are things going? Let me check in on you. I'm here if you need me. You said you're working on your hot flushes, night sweats. You said you're working on controlling, regulating your moods a little bit more. You want help with your sleep disturbances. You know, I'm checking in with you week by week. You've set these habits to change your behavior. How's that working for you? oh, you're struggling to meet that behavior. Let me help you make something that's going to work for you a little bit more. And that's really helpful when someone comes in and say, I feel overwhelmed. I feel like I need to sort everything out. It's to have that friendly advisor in the background to say, let's start with this first. Or equally, you can be going great, but then you can be like, we just had someone, I've just been on holiday. She wanted to take control of her weight a little more. Been on holiday, everything's gone out the window. How do I start back again? And again, it's just having that person to give that advice.
So how does the coach work? So is the coach, are they based in the UK? Are they based here? Or are they in both places?
So at the moment for the UK, they are based in the UK. And it's through a chat function. So all inside the app, it's all on one platform, which also was really important to us, because we know that when you don't have much time, when you're feeling overwhelmed, you don't want to like be sent here, there and everywhere. And can you add this bit in? And oh, you haven't got the latest, this, that and the other. And so it's all in one platform. You're working through your plan over the 12 weeks, and then you've got a lovely little chat function. You just hit on that in the toolbar and up pops your chat, which you are having ongoing with your coach. And they can give a lot of information, and you know, they can be responding to you within a day. So it's not like off it goes and then a week later someone helps you. And then the other big thing that we've got, which I think is really useful, is that we recognize behavior change takes time. You're not looking, as you well know, you've got to be committed to it. You need to be motivated. It's not going to happen overnight, but the benefit of seeing small wins is really significant and massively impactful.
Yeah,
and so, but we felt that there was this element that what happens when that woman is like in the office, feeling really kind of agitated, senses that a hot flush is coming, dashes off to the loo, getting called, or when you come in for the meeting, we're waiting for you to present, and it just feels like 5 years ago I could cope with this, but now I can't. Why is that? What do I do in this moment? I know I'm on my plan. I know I can reach out to my coach, but how do I refocus? How do I gain my composure again? And so what we have is this SOS function. So again, just a quick tap on the toolbar. And we've really thought about those in the moment elements where you're like saying, actually, I'm feeling very hot. Yes, physically you're feeling it, but you're also feeling it emotionally. And you think, actually, I'm going to listen to some cooling music. So we've got things like rain and thunder and pitter patter on a roof to cool you down. If you're like, I'm in the middle of the night, someone said they woke up heart beating crazy, drenched in sweat, can't get back to sleep. Well, great. Put on a sleep story, put on sleep sounds. If there's a moment of, I'm really stressed, my agitation's gone crazy, I'm driving the car, I've had to pull over. Brilliant. Go into the SOS and listen to a guided meditation, which is all about refocusing you and getting you to think about what can you focus on right now and get rid of your worries. And I'm not saying, oh my gosh, that will completely wipe everything away. But I think it's a really useful, tangible tool that you can actually go to and can provide some help.
Yeah. When you talked about in the workplace, that's one thing that the UK has done a great job of, because I know you guys had a bill that was passed that helps women in the workplace. We don't have that yet. And I'm really hoping that the US follows in the UK's, path. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's important now that it has become on workplace agendas, and they realize that, one, they should be doing something about it, because it's about kind of providing that workplace that is friendly and is open and is supportive. There is some debate about, well, this is a natural process, we don't need to do anything. But actually, I think the other element which kind of tilts the balance is you are losing really valuable people who for a small amount of time are affected in multiple of ways, which actually, it's not from them effectively signing off and not being bothered with their performance. They're just saying, if I can't sleep, I can't perform like a person that I was however time ago when I did sleep well. So it's then like saying, oh my gosh, but they've got really great skills. They're really senior, because of course it's generally not happening to the 20-year-olds. It's happening to the more senior, older women. And they're like saying, this is a significant level of the workforce. we can't just say, oh, we're aware of it, but we're not going to do anything about it. But also, you know, it's so many easy fixes, and that's not going to help everyone. I'm not going to, you know, wash that away.
But it's a start, though.
But it's a start. It's like saying, actually, is there another place in the office that would work better for you? Do you need to just be able to say, I need to take a rest break? And when I think about some of my previous jobs, and I used to do traveling a lot in the US actually, and it was always like, yeah, we're just going to get in the car and travel for 6 hours. And I thought, you know, if I was a woman going through perimenopause, I'm going to need to have stopped. If I'm suffering from heavy periods, I need to change my pads. And then the onus is on me to say to the 4 blokes in the car, well, you know, can we just stop? Well, you only just stopped for the loo. Surely you can't need the loo again. You know, of course no one's going to say that. You know?
Yes.
And so I think it's just about saying, like, hold up, as a matter of standard procedure, we're not going to say, oh, it's on you, Michelle, to highlight this as a personal issue. We're just going to say in standard that if you are driving in a car, you're going to stop every half an hour now, or whatever it is.
Whatever it is, exactly.
You know, if a woman needs to feel that she needs, like, all these back-to-back meetings that we just roll from one to the other. No, we make all meetings 55 minutes or 50 minutes, and that gives everybody a rest break.
Yeah.
And I think it's just these changes, as I say, they're not going to change everything, but there has been a lot of work in the UK around uniforms, which I think is a really significant thing, especially when we look at service sector. For example, a lot of people working in shops and supermarkets.
Yeah.
And the type of uniform typically would be things like nylon, etc., which is super unfriendly to if you're feeling a hot flash, if you're feeling sweaty, is it uncomfortable? And, you know, actually, let's make these waistbands more comfortable for people. Let's actually make the material better. And so I think, if I remember rightly, Tesco's came out saying they're changing all uniform, but it's now going to be new for everybody. So it's not that, well, you need to come and tell me you are a perimenopausal woman.
Which is nice, because you don't want to be singled out either.
Exactly. So it's a standard. We recognise that we were not serving all of our workforce equally, and therefore we're now, reviewing our practices. And I don't know if it is Tesco's, but that sort of thing. And I think when things like that happen, it is a significant benefit, really, for everybody.
I love that. And Lisa just mentioned, my doctor told me that when I'm hot in my body, I'm also hot in my brain. Yeah, it's like, definitely. You feel like you're on fire, for real.
Yeah, you do. You do. And there's great work from Lisa Mosconi, based out in the US, who does fantastic. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend her book, The XX Brain. It's super, super useful because it explains the role specifically of estrogen. XX Brain. Lisa Mosconi, and it's really about explaining the role of estrogen in female brains across the whole life course.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah. And she's doing fantastic work in her research there. And what's also great is she makes it very easy to read and really actionable. So she's saying, look, you know, you can't necessarily, she talks about hormone replacement therapy, but she also talks about how that could or couldn't work, what we know, what we don't know yet, but also like the big role of diet, and that is very significant.
Yeah, I think that is. And I think someone mentioned that, where someone mentioned about giving up sugar and dairy, and I did my own research too, and I found that those were 2 big ones, at least for me. Even alcohol was a big one for me. I gave up alcohol for that reason, because my symptoms became so severe. Definitely. And I think one of the things for all those listening is really pay attention to how your body is. Like when you eat certain things, just see if there's a correlation. Like when you eat this, do you notice this happening to you? Because I'm telling you, food is like before then, you could eat whatever. But I'm telling you, when menopause hits, it's different.
Yeah.
Don't go by what you used to do before. It's different.
Definitely. I think, you know, I don't think we don't know yet whether, I totally get, I always talk about how we could get away with so much when we were younger. Yes. I'm not sure if we could really get away, or whether it catches up with us.
That's true.
But I definitely know that on a day-to-day basis, you could compensate much easier than you can now. And I think the thing is you're totally right. When you look at things like sugar and alcohol and just tracking that, it's so simple to do. You don't need to look at every single label and write it all down. But you just think, how do I feel when, if I typically get to a Friday, Saturday night, I unwind from work, I kick back, I have some drinks. About this feeling of just being more aware, be more mindful of your body and your mind and how you are reacting to things. And I think food's a really great one to start with. But when you get into that place, you also look at, well, how do I react to exercise and activity? You know, what does it do to me? How does it make things change? Does my sleep improve? Probably yes. Does my mood improve? Probably yes. And I think when you can start to tie things like different habits to a benefit, you can then say, this is obvious motivation for me to keep going.
Yeah, I agree. So one of the things I want to ask you about the My Stella app, is it an app that we could use in conjunction with, like, okay, let me go to my doctor and tell him this is going on? Because okay.
Definitely. So we built it not to be in competition with any other thing that you may be doing, whether that's medication, supplements, behaviors, going to a physiotherapist, an acupuncture, anything like that. It's all about, you know, this is a massive change in our lives. And we need all the tools in our toolbox we can have, and this is an additional tool. And I think the thing is, just to like really clarify for people, is it's based on behavior and lifestyle change. It's not medication. So there's nobody who goes, oh well, this is my previous medical history, or I take this and I can't do that. There are no risks to it. There's no kind of, oh, I shouldn't really be doing this, or am I fit to do, am I medically safe to do it? It's just, you know, let's look at your caffeine intake. Let's look at how your behavior is around your sleep. Let's look, are you doing your pelvic floor exercises? What are you eating that could be a trigger to your hot flushes? All of that kind of thing. But it's super effective in that way, because it's really starting to tie what you're doing to what you see, and also putting the evidence behind it of saying, we know this affects this. So have a look at that now and see how you should change accordingly. And also, it's not just to help your immediate symptoms. It's lifestyle changes that tie into making you healthier in longer life. And so when you think about brain, heart, and bone health, these are all the same things. So it's really based on activity, exercise, nutrition, sleep, and managing your stress. And if you're looking after those 4 things, you're going to have up and downs. Some are going to be better than others. There's going to be times where you're like, this is shocking. That's fine. You're in it for the long haul. It's not what you do today or this week. It's what you do and keep coming back to really consistently, as you know. And that's where you actually see, I've really significantly changed my heart health and my long-term strength and power. And, you know, I'm not that frail old lady in 10, 20, 30 years. I'm actually, look at the road you're on. You're like, I'm fit. I'm doing weightlifting. I'm strong. I'm eating well. I'm managing my life. Like, that is, it's not to say you're not going to become ill, but you're a lot better going into older life when you reach it than you would be if you were now at your age saying, oh, I'm just going to let these things happen.
Exactly. And I agree with that, because listen, there's some mornings I wake up, I'm like, what's going on? Like, you know, the bones are creaking, the knees hurt, but you know what? I know I'm still better off than I would have been if I didn't do any of these things.
Exactly. And that's the thing. And I think that's such a strong message to get across, because I think people, yes, we were saying, like, you can't compensate as easily as when you're back in your 20-year-old self, and we were going out and probably drinking a lot more, having a lot less sleep, and just being all together a very different life. But even when you're at 40 and 50, you are a lot fitter than how you are aging when you're 70, 80. And I think then at 40 and 50, people take for granted how well they are. They can still get up, they can still get in their car, they can still drive to work, they can do some things around the house, they can play with their kids or whatever. And they're like, oh, okay, no, I'm not as fit as I used to be, but I'm managing. That trajectory doesn't look all that good when you add 30 years onto that.
Yeah, I agree. And I love a question that Just Silver Journey asked. She said she always asks her body, Are you sure you want this? Will it make
Yeah,
you feel good? And it's
exactly.
true.
Yeah, definitely. And I think what's great about that is it gives the option to say, yeah, I do want it. You know, I've had a tough week. I want to relax a bit. It's not an all or nothing
Yeah.
situation. I'm not saying
Thank
you
you.
can't ever eat sugar, drink alcohol again, but you just don't want to get into the habit where you're reaching for these things that actually make you feel bad.
Right.
You want to do it more like, tonight I'm out with my friends, I feel good, I'm going to treat myself and I'm going to have some alcohol. And you're
Yeah.
very conscious of it. You're
That's
not
the
just walking
difference.
in the door, opening the fridge, stuffing your face and pouring yourself a glass of wine. And then suddenly you realize, wow, I've really spiked my sugar level. I'm drinking alcohol for the fourth, fifth time this week, and getting into that. It's just,
Yeah.
you know, that's the habit you want to get out of for sure.
Yeah, I agree. The awareness, I mean, I think the awareness is key. Like knowing ahead of time, even if you do it, you'll say, okay, I'm doing this knowing that this will happen. That's a very different feeling than just doing it and just not being completely unaware. So
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely agree with that. So one of the things you mentioned, so you mentioned you get the 12 week. So it's a 12-week program automatically once you sign up, right?
Yes, so it's a 12-week program automatically when you sign up. Then at the 12 weeks, don't worry, it's not like we do because we also
Okay.
recognize that's quite an intense thing. Like when I say intense, we would say there's a lesson each week. It takes about 10 minutes to read, or we have audio versions. So you can listen to it while you're in the kitchen, walking to work or whatever.
Okay.
And then the habit is like, you know, you're trying to get more active, let's say. So it's like, you're going to set a habit for 3 times in the week. You're going to go for a walk at lunchtime. So those habits aren't like something you've got to do all day. It's not a weekend worth of reading or anything like that. So it's very much doable, but I think it's on your mind. And that's what I mean about being quite intense. And what we find is then when at the end of the 12 weeks, you go into what's called the maintenance phase. Now, some women, because everybody works differently, and we've left it open for women to do what they want. Some women are saying, look, let's say I've really been working on my sleep and my mood. I've taken a lot on board, but I haven't really got all my habits honed yet. I want to go back round it. You've got all of that program still on your phone, on the app, and you're like, I'm just going to keep working on that. I'm going to explore other bits in the app. I'm just going to kind of not necessarily be on a program, but I've got all of the assets there that I can pull on when I need, but I'm just going to be working at my own pace to kind of consolidate and cement it. Other women though go, yeah, I've sorted those 2 bits and I want to hit my next one. And so you pull down the next load of lessons that are based on the symptom that you want to focus on. And that kind of behavior, it works with how you want. And so, you know, this goes on for years in perimenopause, and symptoms go up and down, as we talked about. And so what may not be affecting you this year or next, in a couple of years, you may go, oh, you know what? I now need the hot flush program. I need to look at, I really want to work on that. Or I feel like, you know, I've really let my weight slip, or my sleep, I've got out of the habit again. So I'm going to go back on the program. So it's very flexible. I think the point is that you start with that intensive bit to kind of really kickstart things. And then you can then navigate how intense you want it to be as and when.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So final question. So one thing I do love about the app, just from what you're saying, is it kind of allows us to be our own health advocate, which is something I always push for. You know, I speak to my clients, you know, people I meet, family members, I tell them all this all the time. Like when you go to speak to your family care, you know, your primary care provider, you have to be your own health advocate. Because like, you know, when you're speaking to someone and they're not really listening to you, like you need to be aware. And so I love that this app is kind of almost educating you about things that are going on with your body. And so the other question I have though is, so what is the cost? What's the cost involved?
Yes, so in the UK at the moment, it's just been Menopause Month in October internationally. So to celebrate that, we have allowed everyone to download the app for free. But our normal costs are 40 British pounds, which would be for the 3 months to start with. And then you can opt to do monthly 20 British pounds a month, or more likely, because as I'm saying, it's not something that you're like, it's more like a gym membership, if you know
Yes.
what I mean. It's not like I'm going to do it for a week and then it's done. I've read that book and that's it. So we felt that probably what fitted with women more is an annual subscription, and that's £70 a month.
Okay.
So that's where we're at in the UK.
Okay. And it's called the My Stella app, so they can just go
just
on.
Stella. Sorry,
just Stella.
Stella. So the name Stella.
Yeah. And so for those of you who are probably in my age group, like Stella, like how Stella got her groove back, that's Stella.
Yeah, definitely. And I know it's not in the US yet, but I was thinking about it. If people are interested and just kind of wanted to learn a little bit more, we do have a website, so definitely go and check it out. And then you can there will be updates there about when it's hitting the US market. So it's www.onstella, so onstella.com, www.onstella.com. And you can find more info, and you can always send us an email. There's links there that you can send us an email.
Now, do you know any idea when you think it's coming to the US?
No, I'm thinking we're hoping for the end of the year for sure.
Okay, so that's good.
Relatively soon in development times.
Okay, because I think women, I'm so glad you guys are doing this. Women need this. You know, we need something like this that can help us, where, you know, it's an app that has all the information and provides, you know, it's using our situation to kind of create our experience. I mean, I think that's, someone says, get over here, Stella.
That was a very serious point, but I love that comment. Get over here, Stella. No, I know. And I think, you know, we're super excited. It's going to be fantastic.
That's great. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I know it's later in the day for you, but I really appreciate you coming on. This was great. And I know this is going to be so beneficial to everyone listening.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's been fantastic questions. Great to have this platform just to tell people more. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Take care. All right, everyone. Thank you all for listening and taking time out of your day to, to just kind of listen to this. I appreciate it. Thank you. Bye.